The longest government shutdown in history may be nearing its end as the House races to vote on a funding resolution.
We're delighted to be able to keep the government moving forward, keep spending relatively flat, and then do our job.
I'm Daily Wire executive editor John Bickley with Georgia Howe. It's Wednesday, November 12th. This is Morning Wire.
The FDA says black box warnings for hormone replacement therapy drugs will be a thing of the past, calling them a product of fear, not fact.
People think about hormone replacement therapy after menopause in terms of the short-term benefits, but there are profound long-term health benefits.
And we look at the role media bias has played in shaping the way Americans have viewed the shutdown battle and which parties to blame.
Thanks for waking up with Morning Wire. Stay tuned. We have the news you need to know.
Now that the holidays are upon us, many people are looking at getting a new TV, a new phone, maybe an iPad. Here's why you should consider getting new sheets. Boll & Branch is having their best sale of the year right now, 25% off everything on the site. If you've been thinking about upgrading your bedding, this is definitely the time. I'd start with their signature sheets. The cool thing is they actually get softer every time you wash them, and they're made with top quality 100% organic cotton. All their stuff's worth checking out. Their blankets, throws, pillows, duvets, it's all built to last. And the best part, everything's on sale right now. Personally, I love their sheets, but their waffle blanket, that's been the real game changer. It's not like those heavy comforters that are just too warm. It's the right amount of breathable and warm rolled all into one. Plus, they've got a 30-night guarantee, so if you're not happy with it, you're covered. Give yourself and your loved ones the most extraordinary feeling sleep with 25% off site-wide plus free shipping and extended returns during Boll & Branch's best sale of the year. Shop now at bollandbranch.com/wire with code WIRE. That's Boll & Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/wire, code WIRE for 25% off. Some exclusions do apply.
The government shutdown appears to be on the verge of finally ending as both parties debate the future of health care, and Chuck Schumer fends off calls for his resignation.
Daily Wire political reporter Cameron Arcand is here to break down another packed day from Washington. Hey, Cameron. So all eyes are on the Hill today as Congress works to end this record-breaking shutdown finally. Where do we stand?
Well, we could finally see the government reopen later today after the Senate approved their vote. They broke through with the help of 8 Democrats to essentially open the government once again. But that bill will now need to go to the House side, and they're expected to start taking votes today at around 4 p.m. Now, this is obviously a major development after the longest government shutdown in American history. So it definitely comes at a time where, things are very politically split, and we're seeing a lot of pushback not only to the Democrats who voted for reopening the government, but we're also seeing pushback against Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who is now facing calls to step down or even be primaried in 2028.
Yeah, a lot more people wondering now if AOC will end up running to unseat him then. So if and when this shutdown actually ends, where will the focus turn in D.C.?
Well, once we have things back up and running, the focus is very quickly going to shift back to the healthcare debate, but it's going to look a little bit different. Keep in mind, during this shutdown, the Democrats said that they wanted the continuing resolution to be contingent upon continuing subsidies for Obamacare. Now, as part of this deal, they want to essentially bring it back next month, this discussion, as the government will only be funded through the end of January as it stands right now if this goes through. So we very well could see this debate rise again after that if they don't figure this out before then. This is because premiums are set to spike if the subsidies don't continue. Opponents have said this is just proof that the Affordable Care Act was not sustainable in the first place. Meanwhile, Speaker Mike Johnson said, hey, that was the Senate side's thing. We didn't really make any promises too much on our own end right now. So there hasn't really been a whole lot of commitment yet in terms of looking at on the House side in terms of figuring out a solution there on Obamacare subsidies. There's been some discussion in terms of tax advantage health savings accounts. That's been floated. President Donald Trump has also floated, giving back some of that money in terms of the subsidies back to the American people, saying this really only, a lot of these subsidies only benefit large insurance companies.
Instead of going to the insurance companies, I want the money to go into an account for people where the people buy their own health insurance. If we did that, that would be so exciting. Call it Trump Care.
All right, so Trump care. We'll see if that's really in the works here. Before you go, let's get to what else President Trump did yesterday. He was very busy yesterday. What did we see and hear from the president?
Yeah, so the president provided remarks at Arlington National Cemetery on Tuesday for Veterans Day. The Daily Wire's White House correspondent Mary Margaret Olahan has some more on that.
President Donald Trump commemorated Veterans Day with remarks honoring our military's legacy of gallantry and daring, and he expressed gratitude to American veterans for their service to our country. He specifically reflected on the stories of American valor and shared these stories of titans, icons, innovators, and trailblazers. And to honor some of these veterans, he told specific stories of Major Sullivan Ballou of Rhode Island, who fought in the Battle of Bull Run. He told the story of Colonel Bull Wolverton, the commander of the 3rd Battalion, who parachuted in on D-Day and was killed by German soldiers as he hung from a tree. He also told the story of Army Captain William Swenson, who was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor after he valiantly defended his comrades in the Afghan mountains when they were under attack. So just multiple stories of these American war heroes.
Needless to say, things are starting to get moving again here in Washington.
Indeed, and hopefully this time tomorrow we're talking about something other than a shutdown. Cameron, thank you so much for reporting.
Thank you.
Running a small business is anything but small. For business owners, it's all-consuming from day one. Every decision feels massive and new challenges arise daily. What makes the biggest difference, though, is having the right platform with all the tools needed for success, one that grows the business and simplifies the complex decisions that come with entrepreneurship. That's where Shopify comes in. Shopify's point-of-sale system acts as your unified command center, seamlessly connecting in-store and online operations across up to 1,000 locations. This means customers can shop however they want, whether that's endless aisle browsing, buying online and picking up in the store, or traditional shopping, while your staff has everything they need to close the sale every single time. But here's the real advantage. Since acquiring customers costs so much, Shopify POS helps you keep the ones you have through personalized experiences and first-party data that gives your marketing team a real edge. The proof is in the numbers. An EY report shows businesses using Shopify POS see a 22% better total cost of ownership and an average 8.9% sales boost compared to the competition. Get all the big stuff for your small business right with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period and start selling today at shopify.com/morningwire. Head over to shopify.com/morningwire. Again, that's shopify.com/morningwire.
The FDA is removing black box warnings from hormone replacement therapy for menopause symptoms. The reversal is earning high praise from both the medical establishment and medical outsiders.
Here with the details is Daily Wire reporter Amanda Prestigiacomo. So, Amanda, this is really a landmark decision for the medical establishment. But first, can you tell us why these warnings were there in the first place and why they're removed and why this is so significant for women?
Well, these warnings were slapped on HRT for menopausal and perimenopausal women more than 2 decades ago by the FDA. But the current FDA under Dr. Martin Makary, the commissioner, he says those warnings were really unnecessary, they were harmful, and they were based off a significantly flawed 2002 Women's Health Initiative study that connected this treatment to an increase in breast cancer risk. Experts now agree with Makary that that was not accurate. As for why this is so significant, currently fewer than 5% of menopausal women take HRT. Dr. Makary says that between 50 to 70 million women have been denied or discouraged from taking this treatment since that study was mainstreamed. And he says that the vast majority of those women were denied life-changing or even life-saving treatment. Morning Wire was able to speak to Dr. Makary about this decision. Here's what he told us about potential HRT benefits when this therapy is given to women within 10 years of the onset of menopause.
Women who go through menopause and start hormone replacement therapy have profound short-term and long-term health benefits, including reducing the risk of bone fractures by 50 to 60% later in life, reducing the risk of fatal heart attacks by 30 to 50%. That's the number one cause of death in women, and reducing cognitive decline. There may be no medication in the modern era, aside from perhaps antibiotics or vaccines, that can improve the health outcomes of women on a population level more than hormone replacement therapy started within 10 years of the onset of menopause.
McCary noted that this treatment is really for the vast majority of women in this phase of life, though he said that there are some rare exceptions to that. For example, if a woman currently has breast cancer, women should talk to their doctors about this. He also stressed that the FDA no longer adheres to harmful groupthink, and he said that evidence will trump fear under this administration.
The FDA is taking action to remove these black box warnings so that women have the right information and are making the decision based on evidence and not on the fear machine.
Now, for decades, there's been trepidation about these treatments. What kind of reaction are we seeing from the medical community?
Well, major medical groups are supporting this. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, they represent 60,000 physicians and medical professionals. They praised the FDA for effectively empowering women. The Menopause Society, the American Association of Clinical Urologists, and the National Consumers League, which is a consumer advocacy organization, they all applauded the FDA for this. Also of note, just last year, Harvard Medicine magazine acknowledged that this Women's Health Initiative study was widely considered flawed. And it's not just the medical establishment. We're also hearing from medical professionals who might be considered heterodox. They're on board with this. Dr. Peter Attia, for example, he's a very popular podcast host and author. He's a doctor who specializes in preventative and longevity medicine. He was recently on 60 Minutes just before the FDA made this announcement. Here's how he framed the issue.
An incredible mistake was made 25 years ago, and it's very hard not to argue that this is the greatest single failure of the modern medical system. We're actually seeing right now that the FDA is finally, after 2 decades, going to remove a black box warning.
Well, considering that this affects half the population, it's a pretty notable change. Amanda, thanks for reporting.
You're welcome.
With the government shutdown poised to end on a sour note for most Democrats, it's become painfully obvious just how eager some in the media were to put their thumbs on the scale.
Daily Wire senior editor Virginia Kruta has more on that story. Hey, Virginia, is it fair to say the legacy media coverage was in fact biased against Republicans?
I definitely think that's fair, and the numbers really tell that story. So the Media Research Center did a study on the first full month of the shutdown from October 1st to October 31st, and they looked at the evening broadcasts on the 3 major networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, and they found that 87% of the network coverage was actually favoring Democrats.
Well, 87%. So how did they arrive at that number?
Well, when MRC does these evaluations, they only look at statements made by people on the network who are supposed to be nonpartisan. So anchors and experts who are supposed to be right down the middle. They don't look at statements made by partisan actors, for pundits or elected officials. And when they used that framework, they found that 83 statements about the shutdown were critical of Republicans and only 12 were critical of Democrats. Those same people, despite talking about the shutdown on multiple broadcasts, showed very little interest in discussing how the shutdown had actually begun and who was responsible for not voting in favor of the clean continuing resolution that had been presented. On both ABC and CBS, according to MRC, only 12.5% of the reports on either network mentioned this basic detail, and on NBC, that fact was included in just 31% of the newscasts.
Now, we've reported on the fact that many Democrats are not happy with the ones who broke ranks and made the deal. We've also seen a growing number ready to see Chuck Schumer retire, force him out. How have the networks covered that internal struggle?
Well, over at CNN, they're really laying it on thick against Schumer. They're highlighting how much blowback he's getting from within his own party. Here's CNN pollster Harry Enton explaining that.
What about Democrats nationwide feeling about Chuck Schumer? I think the word of the day is terrible, 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 terrible. To quote another Charles Barkley when it comes to Chuck Schumer, look at this. Least popular Dem Senate leader ever. I looked at all of the polls going all the way back since 1985. The one who has the lowest rating among Democrats is, in fact, Chuck Schumer.
And on ABC, the hosts of The View have been gunning for Schumer since March because, as they said, he caved to avoid a shutdown early in Trump's term. They re-upped calls for him to step aside on Monday, and they spent some of their time on Tuesday yelling at Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman for voting in favor of his constituents not starving.
Well, Senator Bernie Sanders said the vote was a horrific mistake. Governor Gavin Newsom called it pathetic and a surrender. Poll after poll found more Americans on both sides of the aisle blaming Republicans. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene blamed the GOP. As you mentioned, Democrats had big wins last week, so you had momentum. Why give in now? Why bring a butter knife to a gunfight? Are you willing to gamble that the GOP will negotiate on health care in good faith once the government reopens?
So there's a bit of a pile-on effect happening right now. The argument appears to be that allowing for the compromise gives Donald Trump a win, and that's something that neither Democrats nor media are really happy about doing. But overall, as MRC has found again and again, the legacy news networks aren't even trying to hide their degree of bias against Republicans at this point.
Yeah, like we said at the top, it's really become impossible to miss it at this point. Virginia, thank you so much for reporting.
Absolutely, anytime.
Thanks for waking up with us. And if you're listening to the show, you can now watch us for free on Daily Wire Plus. We'll be back later this evening with more news you need to know.
Beam's cyber sale is open for early access for our listeners, and it's their best offer of the year, but only for 48 hours. Right now, our listeners get up to 50% off, and with our code WIRE, you can grab Dream for just $32.50. That breaks down to roughly $1.08 per night for the best sleep of your life. Head over to shopbeam.com/wire and use our code WIRE, and don't miss out. This is the lowest price Dream has ever been sold anywhere, and is likely to sell out quickly. That's because Dream is packed with ingredients that your body actually needs to sleep. Reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and yes, even melatonin, but dosed intelligently, not like that drugstore garbage that knocks you out and leaves you groggy. Head over to shopbeam.com/wire and use code WIRE to get up to 50% off during Beam's cyber sale. You can grab Dream for just $32.50, but here's the catch. Dream is only available at this price until it sells out, so seriously, think about it. How much would you pay for a truly great night of sleep? With Beam's cyber price, it breaks down to just $1.08 per night. So head over to shopbeam.com/wire and try Beam today.